do a little bit of both. And I'll turn it over to Matt to introduce himself and his role at CuriOdyssey.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Matt. I'm a science educator here at CuriOdyssey. My job is I teach a whole bunch of different programs, lots of school groups for kids, homeschool groups. And then during the summer, I'm the director of our zookeeper themed camp. So I'm also kind of specialized in animals. So you got the two animal people today. And also today we're going to meet a bunch of our animals, which will be really exciting.
Yeah, I feel like I forgot to say this, a lot of people ask, how do you end up being an educator who does all of these interesting things? Matt and I both have backgrounds in wildlife biology. We studied wildlife biology and conservation in college, and I went on to do a master's degree in natural resources. So my background is mainly in birds and museum education and field ecology. And then Matt, what was your past life before CuriOdyssey?
Yeah, so once I graduated, I was pretty sure I wanted to go into education. So I actually moved to Korea to teach English in Korea for a year. And then from there is a bunch of seasonal jobs doing education programs at different zoos and museums and nature centers until I found myself here at CuriOdyssey doing more education programs.
Awesome. So we hope that we'll be able to first start by just sharing some information about how you would come and see us at CuriOdyssey and what the museum is all about. CuriOdyssey is a science museum and zoo. It's part science center and part rescued animal zoo. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we alternate back and forth. Also, as a note, we are very casual. We love questions about animals, about science, about visiting CuriOdyssey. Feel free to either put those in the chat or really just go ahead and talk. We're a small group and we are happy to let folks engage and let us know what's on their minds and what they care about the most. So very casual. We love being interrupted by questions and helping to field those, especially because we just have a feeling, Matt and I a lot of times team up with our preschool classes. We know that today the questions will probably be less about what the best flavor of ice cream is and more about things that will help you all get to CuriOdyssey. So we're excited about that. Just to start off with what we're featuring right now at CuriOdyssey are two pop-up exhibits. One's up right now and one is coming soon. So if you were to come and visit us at our museum, the outdoor exhibit is a art display of scanning electron microscope and other microscopic images of parts of animals from the very tips of their feet to up close pictures of like their hairs and scales. And it's called Creature Features. So you can find even some actual casts of our animal feet out in our zoo area and outdoor gardens. What's coming soon, I highly recommend seeing this experience. It's really wonderful for both adults and also for families. It's Illuminoddyssey, which is our winter light experience that will be coming November 19th, and it's viewable all the way until January 9th. And what it is our event hall gets transformed into an immersive light experience. So there are blending colors, there's lasers, there's inflatables, music, optical illusions, UV light, and glowing light experiments, and a lot of unique things that we don't normally get to show on the Science Center floor because they wouldn't be visible unless you are in the dark. Another awesome feature about that exhibit, Illuminoddyssey, is our Redwood Hall does have both ramps and stairs. So for folks who may have rolling vehicles that help them get around, or young folks who are still in strollers, it's very accessible for anyone who wants to come and see it. So we hope that you come on by. If you're thinking of coming soon, I would almost like wait a couple of weeks until that pop-up is up. It really is worthwhile seeing. I'm going to pass it now to Matt to talk about our creatures.
Yeah. So at the zoo, we have over 100 different animals. The vast majority of them are California natives. We have a few odd ends. Actually, we're going to meet two of our non-California natives today, just because they're mostly our education animals who come out to do programs. But overall, they're mostly California natives, and they are, for the most part, rescues. So they are either found injured in the wild and were taken to a center to recover and just were deemed unreleasable, or they were either had some sort of interactions with humans when they were young, so they quite never learned those survival skills. Like, for instance, our crow was like hand fed by some person during its young formative years, and so it was deemed that it would not be able to make it in the wild as a normal crow. So now he lives here to do education programs. Personally, my favorite animal we have at the zoo here is Poppy, our North American porcupine. So she's a big cushy pinball. She's very lazy, so she was rarely out of her bed, but she's very food motivated. So like when we put little snacks out, she'll start climbing all over her wood bedding and stuff to look for like grapes or some of her favorite and craisins, very sweet fruit kind of things.
Oh, you had to throw in the my favorite animal. I have to chime in on that too. My favorite animal at CuriOdyssey is our burrowing owl Pigwidgeon, because he is very good at hiding in our aviary. In addition to our animals in enclosures, we actually have one that works in reverse. You go inside of the animals' enclosures with our birds, and you can walk around, and they're free flighted. Some of them are ducks, so they're free swimming. And others walk around like our burrowing owl. So you're immersed amongst all of the bird habitat. And that is my favorite place and our favorite animals at CuriOdyssey. In addition to our current animals that we have rescued and our pop-up exhibits, CuriOdyssey has been in our community in a shape or form for the past 65 years. I grew up in this area, so I definitely remember going to the old Coyote Point Museum for Environmental Education, as many of you may remember it. That was what I knew it as a kid. And over the years, we have really transformed into an institution that serves more of the local community, reaching out to young people, reaching out to teens, and of course, reaching out to adults and family groups. All throughout that history, we have been dedicated to helping people have experiences in natural phenomena, environmental science, nature, wildlife, and science and technology, engineering, and math types of classes, camps, and just guest experiences to come and visit. So it's everyone always has a favorite. When it was the Coyote Point Museum memory, some folks remember the first revision where there were bees and a touch tank full of tide pool animals. And yeah, it's been interesting. I've seen my childhood place transform over the past several decades. And yeah, we're excited to just keep going and to reach out to more and more students. We just recently started an outreach program with youth in Millbrae, which is really right next door. It's 2 miles away, but we haven't done much there over these years. So we're just excited to reach out to more and more folks. If you are interested in coming to us, I'm going to hand it over to Matt to talk about what that takes.
Yeah. So we have all sorts of like different ticket prices. We have our ticket booth right at the front through the big gate. We have adults tickets are $15.95. If you have children who are 18 to 17 years old, that is $12.95. And if you're a college student and you have your student ID, that's also $12.95. And we also have a seniors discount for $12.95 as well if you're 62 or plus. So that's always good to get a discount. Infants under 17 months are also free. So, if you have any really young grandkids that you want to bring, they're going to get in for free. We also do offer memberships, which I'm not quite sure what the pricing on that is, but I think it's not much more than a ticket. So I think if you come, you can buy a ticket and see if you like it. And then the price of that first ticket can go towards your membership. So if at the end of your visit, you're like, oh my gosh, I loved it so much and I want to keep coming, you could just upgrade your first ticket to a membership. And then that means every other time you come, you get in with just that membership card.
Yes. Oh yeah, and there are grandparents memberships, so you don't have to be the direct caregiver of your family's household in order to have a membership. We do prefer advanced reservations, which are available on our website. There are very often walk-up tickets, especially on weekdays when Illuminati begins, and on our Friday night events, they do tend to sell out. So you're welcome to walk up, but if you are coming on a weekend or a Friday night, I highly recommend using our website, which is CuriOdyssey.org, to make advanced registration with all of us to make sure that there's a spot. It helps to keep our flow safe and make sure that everyone can see something. To come and find us, I know folks are tuning in from their various dwellings. Hopefully, you're all relatively close by. We are located in Coyote Point Recreation area. So if you just keep going past the main road and the entrance, it is just a short drive through the park to wind up at our museum. There is an entry fee to get into the recreation area. However, it is waived for folks who have proof of membership, disabled parking placard, or age 62 and older during the weekdays. So there's just a little toll booth as you come on in and a little pay station, but it is waived for folks with certain conditions. And if you, I believe they also have some county park annual passes, and you would contact your local parks district to get signed up with that. So that's just a little bit of the who, what, when, where, and how you can get to us. And we would love to jump in to showing you some animals. If there are questions, thoughts, fond memories you have about Coyote Point past, we're happy to hear those while Matt gets his first creature up and running.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I have three animals for us to meet today. And seeing as Halloween was just around the corner, figured we would start with one of my favorites. This is Muffin. And Muffin is a Chilean rose hair tarantula. So she's one of those non-native species. They are found natively in South America. So as the name says, Chile is one of their areas, but also Argentina and other surrounding countries. She's a female, and we know that mostly because of her size. So male tarantulas tend to be kind of scrawnier looking. They have slimmer legs and more, let's see, very hard sometimes to get her. And they have a smaller abdomen area, like skinnier abdomen area. And also by the age, because male tarantulas can only live to be about 4 or 5, where a female tarantula like Muffin here can live to be around 20 years old. Muffin is 10 years old, so she would be middle-aged. She's about halfway there. We got her from the East Bay Vivarium, which is a local kind of like pet shopping area that kind of has more exotic pets. So she's not really a rescue. We kind of went out to go get her. Return to jump.
Matt, we have a question. Is that a rumor or is it true? Bust the myth.
Yeah. So I've never seen a tarantula jump. I don't know any of any species that do. There are definitely jumping spiders out there, but tarantulas are more of a ground dwelling species. They burrow, they're on the ground. They don't really like high up as much as other spider species would. But then again, there's the one rule in biology is there's always something that breaks the rule. So someone out there might know about a tarantula species who does jump, and I would not be surprised.
They do lunge, so people who may especially be a little bit nervous around an animal like a tarantula may perceive that as jumping. Many tarantulas are ambush predators, so unlike one that would make a web and just kind of passively wait, they may actually like lunge out and grab prey, and that could look like a jump. If you actually come see our creature features exhibit, there is a whole explanation on what it takes for invertebrate animals to be able to jump. There is a special type of physiology and a joint that they actually have to have in their legs to be able to, it's almost like ratcheting up a jump, like on a pair of vice grips that were immediately released. So yes, jumping in animals without bones is a whole other area of research. Really interesting question.
Carmen, are they poisonous?
Ooh, Matt, is she
Great.
poisonous?
Great question. She is not poisonous. So poisonous means if I were to bite her or if I were to touch her, I would get sick, but she is venomous. And venomous means if she were to bite me, or in the case of like a bee, sting me and inject it, that is venom. But her venom is only about as strong as a bee sting. So it's not really anything I have to worry about. And she's also lived at the zoo here for 10 years. So she's very used to coming out and doing talks. In fact, the gloves are not for my safety, they're for her comfort, because tarantulas are very sensitive and they, for some reason, don't super like walking on human skin, but we found she's very comfortable on this texture of glove. So yeah, this is very much for her and not for me. One of my favorite question?
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned that most of the critters that you have there are rescue, and I'm just curious, do any of them get released back into nature, or are they such that they would not all survive if you return them to nature?
Yeah, we're kind of a permanent home zoo. So once an animal's made it to CuriOdyssey, that means it's been deemed unreleasable and it's not going to make it in the wild. So those animals are usually going to live out their lives here, or maybe sometimes they might go to another zoo, because zoos do cooperate and share animals sometimes. But yeah, we're not a rescue center where we're like rehabbing animals to try to get them back out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like I was saying, one of my favorite things about tarantulas is they have these little hairs that you kind of see. They're not made out of the same material as our hair, but what they can do is she will scratch those off. If I were like a coyote or a bird trying to eat her, she would flick those hairs in my face and they would be extremely itchy and irritating, and they'd get in my eyes and my nose and my mouth. They're called urticating hairs. And so that's just a very cool defense mechanism that tarantulas have. Does anyone have any questions about her?
Where is her face or head or whatever you would call it?
So yeah, actually it's a very fun word for a spider. It's called a cephalothorax because their head and their midsection are fused together. This right here, you're looking, she's staring at you right now. These little dots right here are her eyes. Right here are her fangs. And her pedipalps, those are like, they look like little legs, but they help her grab prey. Right now she's like looking head on at you.
Oh, okay.
Turn it down a little bit. Down to you. Yeah. We do have some native species of tarantula here in California. We have the California blonde tarantula, and we also have a desert tarantula. In fact, we do have one who lives on exhibit here at CuriOdyssey. She's just a little bit smaller, and she lives on exhibit and isn't as used to being handled. So that's why we use Muffin here as kind of our main education program one. Yeah,
I'm trying to see, does she move her legs or feet or what they're in pairs? Do they same two always move at the same time?
I've actually not just watched her walk. Let's see. I don't know. I don't really notice a particular pattern. I don't know, Carmen, do you know if they walk in any particular pattern with their legs?
I was saying I'm hoping that there is somebody who knows horses and can tell us what type of gait it is when you see a tarantula move. But no, they are really flexible. What's interesting about arachnids, so all animals with 8 legs, is that they can move their legs independently. And that's a really good adaptation for ground-dwelling tarantulas. The tarantulas that you find around the Bay Area, you can find them in the East Bay, like up in the hillsides of like Contra Costa County. They are burrowers. So being able to move their legs independently helps them both be able to burrow and move backwards, while they also have their front legs independently able to move and grab or lunge to get prey. So we don't necessarily see that same kind of concerted motion, although as Scott points out, still really graceful. even though it's not really synchronous. They have smooth moving joints, and part of that in tarantulas is due to the way their circulatory system works. That graceful extension that you see of each of her arms and legs independently is because it is hydrostatic. So inside, it's the pressure of the fluid inside of her body. When that pressure increases, a joint can extend. When it decreases, the joint can bend back the way it was. So that graceful movement is, it's basically all hydraulics going on in there. So really smooth, really quiet. You can't hear any of the crunching of her exoskeleton that I think we kind of stereotypically associate with things like insects and spiders. We do have, I don't know if Matt brought any of our crunchier animals, but there are certain animals with outside skeletons, exoskeletons, that you can hear it when they walk. It clicks or it kind of crunches or slides. And what you're hearing with her being so silent is true to real life. They don't have that crunchy clicky sound. Fun facts about tarantulas, and I wish my joints were that smooth. They don't work that way.
What does she eat?
Yeah, so here at the zoo, we mostly feed her a diet of crickets. Every once in a while, we'll give her like a pinky mouse, so like a newborn baby mouse. They are fully carnivores, so they only want meat. And the way they hunt is, like Carmen said, they're ambush predators, so they'll make their web outside their burrow, wait for something to step on it and get stuck. Then they'll come out, inject it with that venom, and that venom kind of liquefies the inside and they kind of slurp it up. So yeah, mostly crickets is the main part of her diet. Are we ready? I think we might be ready for our next friend. I'm gonna go put her up and switch out to our next animal.
Yeah, and if folks still have questions about Muffin or Tarantula, you're welcome to keep chatting away until we get our next creature coming on in. Okay, so also the why is Muffin Muffin? I'm just gonna say this because as science educators, it's a little bit of our job to help turn things that would make people nervous or feel like they couldn't learn about it and make it more approachable. So I think you'll really commonly see that zoos, aquariums, and museums give their tarantulas very endearing and very warm-hearted names. So hence the Muffin. I worked with another tarantula named Barbie. Let's see, what are other fun tarantula names? They always get a cute or lovable or cuddly type of name just to break down that stigma.
Carmen, how are the tarantulas with each other? Do they cohabitate or do they have to be separated? What?
Ooh, that's another behind the scenes thing I'll tell you about zoos and museums. Then most of the time you are going to be meeting a female tarantula, no matter what species it is, no matter what zoo you're at, because the females live twice as long at least. So females of the Chilean rose hair, yeah, right? Females of the Chilean rose hair can be up to about 20. As a well cared for pet or in a zoo setting. The males live about 8 to 10. So they don't necessarily cohabitate well because finding a new roommate when you live twice as long for an animal that doesn't understand us trying to tell them that that's the best thing for them doesn't work out so well. They can eat each other or have territory disputes. So tarantulas do assert territories. Ours live solitarily,
Okay.
and most of them in zoos and aquarium settings will live on their own. Even out in nature, they will most often be solitary and only come together during mating time. It actually is mating season. So if any of you do dawn, dusk types of hikes in hilly areas in the Bay Area, it's possible that you will see a wild tarantula over the next 2 weeks or so before their breeding season ends. But that's pretty much the only time they are together. Yeah, good question. How you doing, Matt?
I'm ready. And so is my friend Goodrich. Let's see. You want to be helpful? So this is Goodrich. Goodrich is a rubber boa, which is a very small but very adorable type of snake. See if he'll give us a close-up of his face. Yeah, his teeny tiny little eyes. So Goodrich here is actually full grown, even though lots of people think, oh, that must be a baby because of how small he is. He's actually 16 years old. Rubber boas can live up to 30 in the zoo setting. So, you know, he's also about middle age. I think our next animal is also 16. We have a lot of 16-year-olds at our zoo for some reason. Yeah, so one cool thing, and I'm probably explaining their small size, is rubber boas are one of the most northernly found snakes. They're found in all the way up to Vancouver in Canada. What's the state? Victoria? No. Can't remember the state that Vancouver's in. But oh, GC. No, all right, it's not coming to me. My geography is bad. So yeah, he's named Goodrich because that is a brand of tire, and he's a rubber boa. We had another rubber boa before I got here who also had a tire themed name that I cannot remember. The reason they are called rubber boas is compared to most snakes, they have these teeny tiny little scales, and those scales make them look rubbery, and they also feel a little rubbery if you were to compare it to like our gopher snake or something who has some bigger scales and it feels a little more rough. Another one of my favorite things about them is he is what is called, sometimes they call them a two-headed snake, because here's his head and there is his tail. So if you are a hungry bird and he starts shaking that tail at you, you might think that's his head. That way, he can actually protect his real head and hopefully make an escape with just maybe a bite out of his tail. Well, you're actually squirmy today. Sometimes he gets a little squirmy. He's very moving right now. And they have a very
warm today?
not too warm, but maybe because he's in my hand now. So and we're inside a room, that might do it.
Say, are you warm today?
I've been a little warm today, so that might be it. Because yeah, they are exotherms, or cold-blooded is a lot of times what we'll call them. So they get their energy from the environment. So unlike us mammals who make our own body heat, he has to get his body heat from an outside source. And right now, I am acting as that outside source.
And is he a carnivore, an herbivore? What is he?
All snakes are purely carnivores.
Oh.
Yeah, so every snake is only going to want meat. But he's a very little snake, so he doesn't eat big stuff. He can eat anything about twice the size of his head because they can they stretch their jaw. The jaw has a little ligament in it that's kind of rubbery and stretchy. And that's how snakes can open up their mouth so wide and swallow things whole. But mostly he also gets crickets. Lots of our animals here are cricket eaters. We buy a whole bunch of them. We have to order buckets and buckets of crickets to feed everyone. Yeah, so that's the main part of his diet too. Also the occasional little pinky mouse and stuff like that.
Cool.
Any other questions about Goodrich? Try and show you his belly scales and see the difference of that color. Let's see if you'll be okay with that. Oh, a little bit. Yeah, so you could see here, his belly kind of has this yellowish color with a little bit of brown. That is called counter shading, where in animals, like a lot of animals like fish and birds and things that climb will have that counter shading where the top will be darker and the bottom will be lighter. And the reason for that is if you are, for instance, a bird and you're flying up in the sky, anything that's flying over you is going to look down and see the dark color, and the dark color will blend in with the land. But anything that's under you and looks up will see the lighter color, and the lighter color is going to blend in with the sunlight. So that way it's like two forms of camouflage all at once. And Goodrich here can actually climb. It's very fun to watch a snake climb. If you watch like a YouTube video of a snake climbing a tree, the way they do it is silly to watch. But yeah, that's why he has that counter shading. Is sometimes rubber boas will climb trees. They want to be able to blend in because they are very small and they do make a very nice snack for several other animals.
Where do you find them, Matt? Where will you find us?
Yeah, so rubber boas, they have a really big range. So like I said, they can make it all the way to Canada, but they also go all the way south to Baja, California. So
Wow.
they just have a huge range. They're a very common little snake. Sometimes they come in different colors. I've seen like some paler, like almost tanny pink rubber boas. So their color really is dependent on what habitat they're in. Basically, it's just whatever color is kind of best for survival in that case. Turn into a bracelet. Come here.
Matt, are there any bacteria or other problems that can be transferred from reptiles to humans?
There are. So every time I change animals, I have to go wash my hands or use hand sanitizer. Salmonella is something that we worry about, especially with our tortoise, like getting onto us, because it actually doesn't affect them, but it will affect us if we like touch our faces and rub it. We also have to worry about viruses between the snakes. We actually, a few years ago, had a big snake die off because one of them had, I think it's called crypsis. I might be quite a little bit wrong on that, but it's a virus that reptiles get. And one of our snakes had it and he wasn't showing signs. And our zookeepers worked with all the other snakes because the one snake didn't show any symptoms. And then all of a sudden, all of our other snakes started showing symptoms. And yeah, we lost like 3 or 4 snakes in a year.
Yeah, it's Cryptosporidius, and it's actually a parasitic infection. So it's a microorganism that can go asymptomatic between reptiles, and it can make them more vulnerable to other bacterial or viral infections. It's not something that can be spread to humans. A fun fact about reptiles is the only reason why that salmonella bacteria has any danger to humans is because they just so happen to not have flushing toilets. So yay, human inventions, flushing toilets, make sure we don't get exposed to things like that. But our reptiles will commonly, crawl or walk over their own fecal matter, and that's where that disease transmission comes in. Since the outside of their skin is non-porous, it's totally waterproof, it's possible to actually wipe them down in antiseptic solutions. So while they do have that risk, it's very, very manageable to keep them clean as far as the human to animal disease pathway. As far as the animal to animal disease pathway, that one is something that veterinary scientists are still studying, just because it's so hard to notice in a wild population. It would be asymptomatic, and even in a zoo population or pet population, it likely stays asymptomatic for years before you notice any changes. We're lucky to have just hired on a point veterinarian at CuriOdyssey, Dr. Kate. She also works internationally to conserve animals all around the world. So we're in good hands as of 6 months ago, and really excited to be moving forward with offering the best health for our creatures.
And just a few more fun things about snakes and their senses, because snakes have just very interesting the whole head area. One you might have noticed, he's been flicking his tongue in and out quite a bit. And that is actually how snakes smell. They smell by gathering particles in the air with their tongue. And they have a little thing called the Jacobson's organ in the top of the roof of their mouth that they rub their tongue against, and that can tell them what's going on. So that's like their main sense of how they can see the world around them is through smell. And that's also why their tongue is forked. It gives them some directionality. So they're like, oh, the smell was stronger to my left. So if I'm looking for a mouse and I get some more mouse particles left, that's the way I'm going. Also, their eyes, you might notice he's not blinked once. That is because he cannot blink. Snakes actually have no eyelids. Instead, they have a scale that covers their eye. And so when they shed, they might be momentarily blind because they are losing that scale and it gets kind of fluid filled while they're shedding. So that's why when our snakes are shedding, we generally tend to leave them alone for like a week because they get a little more nervous and a little more anxious when they can't quite see too well. And then the last thing is, it's kind of hard to tell on him because he's so small, but you'll be able to really see on our next animal, he doesn't really have any ears. So snakes hear in a very different way than us. They mostly hear through vibrations in their jawbone. So they'll feel vibrations with their jaw, and that's the equivalent for them of hearing. So yeah. So I don't even know if he can hear me talking, because I don't know if my voice makes enough vibration for him to feel that I'm like kind of saying words above him, which is very interesting to think about.
And how often do they shed, Matt?
It depends. As they're younger, they shed a lot more because that's just how they grow. And then when they get older, it becomes less common, but all reptiles grow throughout their life. So they're going to continue to shed until they die. It's just at this point, like with Goodrich, it might be like once every few months that he's going to do a shed. Instead of with a younger snake where it might be once every other week, as they're like kind of having their growth spurts and stuff.
And do they live, how long did they live? A long time? What's their life expectancy?
Yeah, so a rubber boa in particular has a lifespan in a zoo, 30 years, in the wild about 20 years.
Wow.
And like I said, Goodrich is 16, so in a zoo and as healthy as he is, probably has another 15 or so years to go. I think I'm going to put Goodrich up, and we're going to switch to our last animal.
How long is Goodrich?
Oh, I don't know. I'd say he's a good like 3 feet.
3 feet?
Yeah, something like that. But
Wow.
like fully stretched out. Maybe like 2.5. I've never actually measured him. I'll have to do that.
Yeah, he's really small around, but he is decently
Yeah.
long enough to be a bracelet around our wrists, a few coils. I feel like because you're an adult audience, I'm also allowed to say this other behind the scenes funny story about Goodrich. Rubber boas are some of the most tame snakes that exist. Even out in nature, a wild rubber boa will be just as calm as you saw Goodrich over there. And that's because their camouflage really helps them to avoid being eaten by predators. So they don't often have to be aggressive at all. Nothing really finds them. So my behind the scenes story is Goodrich is really small. One day he went missing, and he stayed missing on a grand months-long adventure around the museum. And he was found outside on our back patio one winter. And the only way that we knew it was him was that there are no documented rubber boa sightings in Coyote Point Park, and he had been missing. So logically, we had concluded, okay, it has to be him. And why we felt safe picking this one up is because even if it wasn't Goodrich, all rubber boas are really calm and tame. And if we were accidentally mistaken, they wouldn't be too offended. So it's really interesting how, as we said, a lot of our rescued animals couldn't survive out in nature. Goodrich proved us wrong, at least for a few months, unless he was hanging out in our back lab rooms eating all the crickets that we accidentally dropped over the months. But yeah, he was donated to us from a captive born study. Rubber boas are often used for animal behavior studies just because they're so calm and able to interact with humans and scientists. So that's our behind the scenes. We don't normally tell kids that, but we'll tell you that about Goodrich and his adventures. This is one of my favorites. New friend.
Yeah, so this is Wolfgang. I like to think of him as one of our zoo divas. He's kind of the most personality. So sometimes he'll be very angry at you when you come to pick him up, and he'll let you know. He'll like hiss at you and like really flatten himself out, saying, "I don't want to come out today." Luckily for today, he did not do that. So I knew he was nice and comfortable coming out to meet us all. Yeah, he is a blue-tongued skink, as you can tell from that nice blue tongue. And since we just talked about the sensory stuff with Goodrich, let's compare that to Wolfgang here. Yeah, so Wolfgang also can smell with his tongue. Their sense of smell is not as strong as a snake's, and you can tell his tongue is not forked, so he doesn't get that directionality, but he still has that Jacobson's organ where he's still tasting the air and being able to smell what's going on. So right now he's scoping everything out. But unlike our snake, he does have eyelids, so he might blink at some point. I don't know. And he also can hear things. So that hole right there, that is his ear. So he, at the very least, does hear our voices. Because the zookeeper actually, when I was training, before I actually got to handle him, she said, oh, when you go in and you get other animals, you should say hi to Wolfgang and just let him know your voice. Because he has people whose voices he doesn't like and he'll get angry, like our head zookeeper, because she does a lot of the vet checks. So he'll hear her voice and immediately start hissing and puffing up and getting all angry, like, I don't want to touch you because I know you're gonna make me like do some needles or do some tests or do something I don't like. The reason for that blue tongue is it's kind of a trick. It's a type, most bright colors in nature mean something is poisonous. Okay, he is not poisonous, but that blue tongue does a great job at making other animals think he's poisonous. So what he'll do is he'll open his mouth up very wide, and then his mouth is bright white, and then he has that bright blue tongue. And so that'll let other animals know, hey, don't mess with me, even though he can't really do much besides that. He can just look threatening. Ooh, are you squirming today too? This is another non-California native. These animals are actually native to Australia and the surrounding islands. There are several different species of blue-tongued skink there. We're not quite sure which of the many blue-tongued skink species Wolfgang is, because Wolfgang is a rescue. He was someone's pet because they are a common lizard in the pet trade. And that person decided that after having him, I think for 3 years, they decided he was too much work and they didn't want to take care of him. So then he got donated to us, where he lives here now. And he has sharp little claws. So he's not like scratching me on purpose, but when he wriggles around, he has very sharp little claws. Let's see if we can see him. Yeah.
So he's more lizard-like.
Yes, so he is a lizard, but lots of kids will think he's a snake because of how tiny his limbs are.
Yeah.
He has teeny tiny legs and arms, and he does almost have a kind of like slither. And also the fact that skink is the name, kids will be like skink, snake, they're probably the same, which in kid logic, that makes sense to me. Unlike our other two animals, he is not a carnivore. He is an omnivore, so he is like 60% fruit and veggies, and then the other 40% would be meats. And just like our other animals, big fan of crickets and little mice, but he also gets that in like a chopped up salad. So all sorts of different fruits and veggies.
He eats well.
He eats well. All of our animals eat well. The only ones who I would say don't eat well are the cockroaches because they get rotten food, but that's because they like rotten food. So they're eating well. I just wouldn't want to eat it. Every other animal's food actually looks very good. Another one of his favorite treats is snails. He's a big snail fan. He likes to crunch those up.
What is he, about 2 feet long, Matt? I can't, it's really hard to tell. Not even that long. Yeah, about, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I'd say that probably checks out 2 feet.
Okay.
He is also 16 years old. So like I said, we have lots of 16-year-olds here for some reason. So born in 05. When he was 3.
When kids come to the museum, the CuriOdyssey, do they get to handle any of the animals?
So there's no handling, but they do get to touch. We didn't do a lot of touching during the pandemic just because we didn't know which animals are susceptible. But if this was a program and you guys were kids who were here in person, I would turn them around. Oh, hello. And I would have them do a 2-finger touch going down the tail like this. So just like on the body. We keep it away from the face because he can bite. He does have a strong bite. And like I said, he's kind of the zoo diva. So if I were to work with any animal and think they'd bite, it would be him out of all of them.
When do you have your animals on display? When you have like a little show and talk about them?
So we have a full zoo. So when you get here, there are always animals on display, like our bigger animals. But all 3 of the animals you met today, there are education animals. So they only come out during talks. And those aren't scheduled. We have volunteers who will just come in who are trained on the animals, and they'll like hang out in certain areas with the animals they're trained on. Or like when we have school programs that the animal fits in with the theme of that program, we'll bring them out. But yeah, there's always animals here. It just depends on what ones you'll be able to see. But you'll definitely always get to see our big ones like our river otter, our bobcat, our gray fox, golden eagles. So there's always lots of cool stuff out and about.
When I've been there, they've had like little groups where a volunteer or an employee shows an animal, talks about it, maybe lets us touch it.
Yeah, so we used to have those talks. They're kind of on pause right now during the pandemic, like the formal like kind of sit down in our little theater area shows. But we do still have volunteers come out and bring like Wolfgang out, and you do get to do those touching, but that's more of a like one-on-one small group interactions, and it's like nothing planned. It's like come ask 1 or 2 questions, and they're like, oh, I want to go see the otter now, so you leave, kind of situation.
The scheduled group presentations for public hours are not happening right now to discourage gathering, but we do have a team of awesome docent and wildlife guides who are able to engage with guests. And as villages, as a group, you are definitely welcome to reserve one of our live programs. We're doing them both indoors and outdoors for scheduled groups. So that would be a way just to make sure that folks from other age groups or like cohorts of schools aren't intermingling. That's one of the ways that we're keeping it safe. But if you have a favorite animal, always feel free to ask, especially on weekdays. We try to do our best to make some magic happen.
Do you still have your hedgehog?
We don't have any hedgehogs right now. Legend has it we might be getting a new one soon. Also, I'm gonna put him up. He's kind of showing me he's a little grumpy with his hisses and stuff. So I think for the last 9 minutes, we'll kind of do just an open Q&A about any of the animals or anything about CuriOdyssey. So I'm gonna put him up and we can go on with that.
I didn't want to jinx you, Matt, but I noticed that sometimes when he gets wiggly like that, it's because he has to go to the bathroom. So
Oh, yeah.
you'll have to tell us if that's what happens next.
Okay. Luckily, I didn't get peed on this time, so.
Oh no, I'm not talking about pee, Matt.
Oh,
It's
Oh.
lizard poop is the worst, so. I don't know
Um,
why, but lizards are just the grossest poop.
I'm wondering, I know it might be on a desktop, but would it be possible to walk around and show people what it actually looks like when they go to the museum?
We have like 9 minutes. I could maybe do a quick little run around with my laptop. I might have to mute myself just because there will be lots of kids running around screaming. So I guess Carmen could narrate a little bit.
Matt, can I give you instructions on that though?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you where the dead zones are and how far you can go.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can you walk through the theater into the gallery, go to the concourse, do not pass the creek wall. Do not pass the creek wall. We will lose you. So just go past the gift shop and show down the hallway, then turn back around and do not go past the Purple Mile. Is that-
Okay.
Okay, otherwise we'll just lose you.
Okay. Let's try to make this work. And if I do actually go down the wrong corner and lose you, it was awesome talking to you all.
I mean, you'll come back, but it takes like a
True.
5-minute delay. We might be gone by
Okay.
that point. So right now, Matt is behind the scenes in one of our classrooms and event spaces. These are available for rental if you have a birthday party coming up. We do hybrid indoor-outdoor birthday parties, and you can reserve special experiences like animal encounters for your birthday party. So right now, he is taking you up into our main indoor exhibit concourse where there are lots of hands-on exhibits. This is one of our favorites to build a horse on. Educators always build a horse or some weird creature when we come to our Build It Up exhibits. There are music exhibits and physics exhibits and also natural phenomena exhibits like our fog machine that he is walking towards right now. It talks about how the redwood forest in California is pretty much all supported by fog. Our front desk and gift shop are right here. This is where you'll typically enter from a ramp or stairway entrance from our parking lot. We do have a roundabout for drop-offs, and we do have multiple spots with ramp accessibility. So this corridor, we don't always have a giant mystical dragon that's left over from Halloween. So that's what you're seeing up there, not an actual animal ambassador. Matt just walked past our gift shop, and he can't go past there to get into our zoo. But if you go past that outdoor area, that's where you would go and see our animal enclosures. Those are also hybrid indoor and outdoor viewing. So they have an indoor quarters where you can walk in, we call it our cave exhibit, or they have an outdoor quarters where they exercise and you can walk around their enclosures on both sides. So don't worry about rainy days. There are indoor places for the animals to be and for you to be too. And for sunny days, they're also out on their outside, or some of them nap a lot of the time. So that's a little layout of our museum. We don't have Wi-Fi in our discovery field, which is around the back. But since the pandemic, we've also expanded into our park area, and there are additional nature exhibits all along the park areas bordering CuriOdyssey. We didn't lose you, Matt. You only froze like 3 times, so good
Oh,
job.
nice.
Do you guys go out to schools and do take a presentation to a school or to anywhere, to us or to whoever? And
Yes.
if so, I mean, what animals would you bring? The same ones that we saw, or would there be others?
The
So-
animal availability changes from day to day, so we don't guarantee animal visits for off-site. But yeah, we can definitely do that to community groups or to schools. I'll let Matt name our other friends who are possibilities.
Yeah, right now, all of our mammals are new and getting trained. So we unfortunately don't have any mammals who come out to like do talks quite yet. In a few months or a year or so, they'll be ready. Also our birds, none of our educators have gotten the chance to get trained on any of our birds. We only have a couple right now who are education-wise, but we do have a few more reptiles. We have some tortoises, some other species of snake. We also have some other invertebrates. We have millipedes and cockroaches. And like I said, we have some new ferrets who are getting trained. We have new bunnies who are being trained. So we have lots of critters who in the next few months will be more.
Terrific.
What happened to your hedgehog? That was my favorite animal.
Oh no, that was before I got here. I've only been here a year and we haven't had a hedgehog since. So I don't know if Carmen knows.
Yeah, I can talk about hedgehogs. Hedgehogs are considered exotic pets. While they are bred, for the pet trade, they're not taken from the wild. They are relatively, I guess, new in our human existence pet, and their disease ecology is still really understudied. What zookeepers have noticed is they're very susceptible to a random onset infection called wobbly head syndrome. It is something that you can't recover from. So we are phasing out hedgehogs at CuriOdyssey as many other zoos are doing, just because we don't have the information on that disease. It does exactly what it sounds like. They get a wobbly head, their joints in their necks don't hold them upright, and they eventually become unable to eat or drink by themselves. To make sure folks can still experience the really cool features of having spiky hair adaptations, we do have a porcupine, and we are looking to work in the future with tenrecs. Tenrecs are a hedgehog-like animal that tends to not get any types of zoonotic diseases, and they're generally a lot healthier in the zoo setting because they are bred from a wild stock of animals brought into a zoo as opposed to something from an exotic pet trade. So yeah, I love hedgehogs too, especially that they can float on their back and that they roll up into a little ball. I promise you that when a tenrec hopefully rolls through our door, we're on the list with zoos and aquariums, that I hope you will love it just as much.
I just want to say thank you, because my one granddaughter, from the time she was like 7 to 12, that was her favorite place to go. We went there quite a few times, and she really, really enjoyed going there and seeing all the animals and doing all the things you could do at the museum. Now she's a little bit too old for it, but
Here, here, Joan.
Joan.
That's our CuriOdyssey is our go-to spot for the grandkids also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I think we enjoy it as much as they do.
I live down here on the peninsula and I've never been there till I came recently to visit you. And it is an amazing place. It's it's very user friendly. And I say that because, you know, I used to take my own kids to the Exploratorium up in San Francisco, and it's an amazing place. But if you're not a reader, it's really tough, or it used to be. And, you know, your place is it's very hands-on. It's very easy for kids to participate in things that are there, which is great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My grandkids used to go with me when they were older teenagers. They still loved it as older people. So I have a question about these poor hedgehogs. Do they get wobbly head disease in nature? Or is it just when they're captive?
Yeah, it's not something that's really well studied. It probably originated in a wild population. And of course, animals are, the way that they get domesticated is there's a wild stock of animals that gets bred in a zoo or farm setting over and over again. So it had to have derived somewhere from there. But if you look at a wild hedgehog, like a wild European hedgehog, it is a different species from what a pet hedgehog is today. So as far as the backwards researching it, it would seem logical to go to the wild population to see what's happening to them and then extrapolate that to the pet population. And it turns out that it's not that easy. Science is never that easy.
Have you found the organism that causes the disease?
I believe it is a bacteria, and I'm not sure exactly what the life cycle is of it. My animal disease background is actually in parasitology, not bacteriology. So I know all about the terrifying microorganisms that take over your body and live in it, but I am not quite an expert in the bacterial or virology aspects. Yeah, fun facts. Thank you all for the love notes about CuriOdyssey. We're really delighted to see that our guests can see those palpable differences. Small community, doable, engageable science center. We like fun people. You all sound like fun people who can still play.
You're a fun place to visit.
Awesome.
Any other
Well,
questions? No? Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much. This was very enjoyable and interesting. I think we all learned a lot. And
Yeah, I had a lot of fun too. It was nice meeting all of you.
good meeting you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
you're
Thank you.
welcome.
I'm curious, what's the zoo's primary advertising medium,
The website.
the website?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we do air a few local commercials, especially for Illuminati. Keep an eye out. Illuminati tends to have some local television station commercials.
I will check it out because I sailed out of Coyote Point for 10 years and I never knew that you were associated with the point.
We also have an Instagram and a Facebook page. If any of you are on that you could follow, and that will give you updates, you know, cute animal videos and any like special events we're ever throwing and stuff like that as
Thank
well.
you. Okay.
I would think too, you get a lot of word of mouth, because I know I've told a lot of people about your place.
Yeah, I think that's the bulk of it, is what it seems like, talking to kids and stuff.
Mhm.
And you have a lot of kids programs.
Yeah, we're mostly directed towards kids. I'd say our main audience is like up through pre-K to third grade. It's kind of like our biggest chunk of audience, but as you guys have seen, you know, you could even be a teenager or older and still come enjoy it and have fun.
Thanks again for
Thank you all.
presentation. I'm going to sign off. I got to go, but thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.